Now, my next guest is perhaps the most famous Donegal man in the world. He is not only a household name in Ireland and the UK, but he has also enjoyed considerable success in America, where he had at one point 9 out of the top 15 albums on the world music chart. He has played nearly every venue of note, from the Royal Albert Hall to the Sydney Opera House, and yet he still manages to remain one of the nicest men in show business. Would you please welcome Daniel O'Donnell. Not ever ended up being on the show like
I know, this is the first time, and I must say you're doing a great job.
You're not so bad yourself, Daniel. Now, there's a rumour going around I want to confront you with, if you don't mind. It says that, are you ready for this? You're retiring next year. No. It's true, it's going around. I read it in a...
Well, maybe some would hope, but no. I actually read that it was on the internet,
yes.
Magella was looking through the internet one night and saw this, you know, that I was retiring, and that I told a friend of mine, and that's the way that I get, you know, I tell somebody and then they tell somebody. But no, I have no intentions of retiring. I did take 6 months off this year and enjoyed it.
What did you do?
Well, we went to Tenerife for a couple of months and spent time at home and just relax. And I suppose the thing about it is that it gives you a chance to catch up with friends, and played a bit of golf. And
are you DIY type?
No.
Are you not a hands-on, hammer and nails?
No, definitely not. No.
Come on.
No.
Who does all the work in the house?
No, we don't have any work to do at all.
Do you not?
No, I was never any good, I must say. Okay. I was never any good at the old DIY. Even at school, I was
useless at that.
I was no good at
but
the woodwork.
I presume you live now in a sprawling ranch or a mansion or something. Is that?
No. We had a very big house at home, and we sold it. We actually renovated the house and built onto it. And it, on plan, I suppose when you're not used to plans, it didn't look huge. But when we had it all finished, it was absolutely huge and too big for us, so we bought a smaller one.
A far cry from the house you were born into, because it was quite a humble beginning for you. I mean, how old are you? Can I ask you how old you are?
I'll be 48 in December.
Next month, or 2 months' time, thereabouts. Sorry, 47 now.
47.
Hang in there, for as long as you can. But the house you were born into, tell me about that.
Well, I suppose, you know, I was no different to everybody else at home, you know, and the fact that everybody lived in similar houses. We lived, when I was born, we were living in a house that was owned by my mother's cousin, where my grandmother probably would have lived, you know, when she was a young girl. And we lived in that house up until I was 6. And it was, you know, there was no indoor toilet or anything like that, no running water. But every house was similar to that. There was only one house in the village that had a bathroom. And it was a 2-story house, one of the few 2-story houses. And the bathroom wasn't downstairs, but it wasn't upstairs either. You know, it was kind of halfway up the stairs.
Up the stairs, yeah.
And we used to be trying our best to get a look in the window to see what the toilet and all this business was like, the bath. Right? But then we moved into the house that we lived in. What did your dad do for a living? My father was, like a lot of people again in our area, he used to work in Scotland.
Yes.
It was very common for the men to go and work on the farms in Scotland, and he was a labourer. Used to go away. I don't really know how often he went away, but he was away for a considerable amount each year, you know, working on farms and all that.
You were very young when he passed away, weren't you?
I was 6 when my father did. I was the youngest of the 5, and you know, I was 6, and the next to me was 10.
He must have been quite young himself, was he?
He was just a year older than I am now, 49.
And how did he die?
Heart attack. Yeah, he died very suddenly.
Do you have a sense of your own mortality when you think of that and the age you're at now and your dad and so forth? Do you think about that at all, or is that?
No, I don't think about about that. But I suppose what I'm very aware of is how young he was.
Yes, that's what I was wondering, yeah.
When I'm now just a year younger than he was when he died, and I think how much he must have had to live, dying at 49. It was so young. I mean, I have so much that I want to do, and I'm sure he was the same. And I suppose the saddest part about it was that year in the September, he died in August, so
yes.
the previous September, he had apparently decided to come home and try and get work at home. Up until that, he worked away, as I said, all the time, and it would have been, staying at home all the time. So he really had very little time. Margaret was telling me that my mother and him were married 19 years, and she said that in that 19 years, they only lived together for 3.
Terrible sign of the times that you were living in.
It was the way it was.
Do you have any memories of your dad?
Very little.
Very little, yeah.
I was too young.
Yeah.
People often say to me, did it affect you? I don't think it affected me at all. The others, being older, it devastated them. But at 6, I remember more about his death than his life, obviously because it was such a traumatic thing in the family. And to be honest, I don't know whether I remember it or it's because I've heard it told. As a child, I heard it told how, he died and, how the priest came and told my mother. And
your mother must have been quite a strong woman.
She was.
And is,
she
I should
was.
say.
She still is.
But at that time, how many was she bringing up then, Daniel?
5. Well, my eldest brother was 19, and Margaret had just started singing.
Yeah.
Well, she had been singing for a number of years, but her first record, my father had taught her a song called The Bonny Irish Boy.
Really?
And that was going to be her first record. And the day that he died was the first time it was going to be played on the radio.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he never heard it on the radio, and they held it back apparently from being played. So there was a lot of sad things, in that period.
I don't know you very well, but other than watching and reading like everyone else, but I get the impression that you've got a huge amount of love and admiration for your mother, Julia.
Yes, well, my
does it
mother...
come from that?
My mother, you see, I suppose, it's the one thing, I suppose, in my career and in my life, that I get so much slagging.
Why do you get slagged?
And even you get... I would be walking somewhere and I'd hear somebody saying, how's the mama, but not asking me out of any concern, I would hear this coming and
They're slagging you.
I just keep motoring, An odd time, like I would, if I had, a bit of annoyance in me about something else, I would turn and by God would I give.
What would you say?
Well, I wouldn't like to say it here.
Do you know any curse words?
Oh, I know them all. I know them all, I just don't practice them.
Good
but
answer.
I have to say, yes, going back to my mother, she was a great woman when my father died. Obviously, for a period, she was just devastated, and that's natural.
Yes.
But once she gathered herself together, she really did an awful lot, and because of that, I never make any apologies for speaking about her, or it didn't occur to me that there was any great deal about it. Your mother's your mother, and if she came to a concert or something, of course you'd acknowledge her. It amazed me that people would think it was strange, but she's great, and
I don't think it's strange at all. You're an Irish son, she's an Irish mammy. Of course it's not.
She had her 90th birthday in July.
Oh, congratulations!
And
that's great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
As a family, we're just delighted that she's been, given good health for so long, and all we can do is spoil her. We'd never repay her for what she did for us.
Do you remember you used to have the tea parties? And, people talk about... I was talking to some people during the week and saying that you were coming on. You do a lot of things behind the scenes for people that are really kind, but you don't get into it, so we won't get into it now. But just suffice to say, you seem to have... You've got a great reputation, put it that way, after a little bit of digging. But the tea party was great, because fans would come to your house, essentially, wasn't it?
Well, you see, that's another thing. You see people saying, somebody else would be having wild,
I know, orgies.
Cocaine parties,
Daniel O'Donnell, cocaine
Daniel
orgy.
O'Donnell has a tea party, a tea orgy,
Tea orgy.
But, and that That sometimes when I'm being interviewed, they say, "God, that was a great